Luka Doncic just had both the best and worst season of his NBA career.
I thought it was perfect that Luka fell onto the ground there in an unacceptable position to put himself in with 4 minutes left with 5 fouls. His defensive performance is unacceptable. He is a hole on the court. The Celtics are attacking him. They are ahead in this series because they have attacked him defensively.
Just a couple weeks ago, we was talking about him being the best player in the league, being the best player in the series. He's far from that right now because of the defensive side of the ball and him being the defensive liability.
Despite leading his team to the NBA Finals at just 25 years old, ranking first in total playoff points, rebounds, assists, and steals, Luka might have ended the playoffs with more negative media and fan attention than when he started the playoffs, which kind of tells you the problem with the NBA media. But when you are seen as one of the most talented players in NBA history, being great isn't enough. You need to be perfect and hope that your team also delivers as well. And whilst we should all be able to recognize Luka was still great during the playoffs, he was far from perfect. And if we as fans of Luka can recognize that, we know Luka himself would recognize that, and the level of motivation that he'll have entering next season after getting so close but falling just short of the title might be just what he needed. Because if Luka can get even 5% better than he was last year, well, the NBA should be very, very worried. Because I don't need to tell you guys that adding an extra 5% to averages of 34 points, 9 rebounds, and nearly 10 assists per game on the best efficiency of his career would make Luka unstoppable. Well, that's not exactly true, is it? Because he already is unstoppable, but that doesn't mean he can't improve. And I know everyone will immediately think about his defense and say he needs to get better, which is true, but I think we did see signs of Luka playing good defense during last year's playoffs. It's more of a consistency problem, which was summed up by the fact social media or ESPN pretty much went from calling him a defensive stopper to the worst defender in NBA history on a nightly basis. I'm here to tell you, he's not actually the worst defender in NBA history, but he should definitely use the NBA Finals as motivation to improve on that end of the floor, because it was clear to see that Boston's strategy was to attack him every single time, and I just can't imagine him not taking that personally when you have a collection of players who you are better than all trying to target you defensively. But outside of the defense, there are some interesting offensive aspects of his game that I don't think have fully been tapped into just yet. Everyone will tell you Luka is a ball hog. He dribbles the air out of the ball and never works off the ball. Those people would be factually incorrect, because last year we actually saw some serious improvements from Luka as an off-ball player with the addition of Kyrie Irving. Look at this play, for example, where it's Kyrie setting the screen off the ball to free up Luka, giving him that extra bit of space to get off the shot over Chris Dunn. Or this play from the exact same game where it's an identical action with Kyrie again setting that screen for a Luka 3. And it was actions like this which led to Luka doubling his catch and shoot threes from 1 attempt a game to 2, which isn't a crazy amount, but again, that was just his first season with Kyrie Irving. His second best ball handler at times during his first 4 years was Tim Hardaway Jr., with Jalen Brunson obviously coming off the bench for a fair bit of it. Can you really blame him for dribbling the air out of the ball when that was the case? And it wasn't just the catch and shoot threes, but in general, Luka's time of possession also went down whilst his overall touches actually went up, meaning the ball was sticking less in his hands. In fact, there were 10 guards who averaged more dribbles per touch than Luka Doncic. Guys like Ja Morant, Trae Young, SGA, Cade Cunningham, but people will tell you Luka is the biggest ball hog in the league when that's not only false, but out of all of those players I mentioned, who would you rather handling the ball than Luka Doncic? The answer is none of them. And now with the addition of Klay Thompson, I think there will be even more opportunity for him to add to his already ridiculous offensive game. How about not just utilizing screens from other players to free himself up, but setting screens himself for the likes of Kyrie and Klay. Take Draymond Green for example. He is shorter than Luka, he is a worse ball handler, a worse passer, a worse shooter, and I'm not saying all of this to trash Draymond Green, but despite that, the Golden State Warriors have killed teams utilizing him as a screener with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. There is no equivalent to Steph Curry, but Kyrie Irving is about as close as it gets. So why not use Luka as a screener in those situations? It just feels like an action that could add even more to an already potent offense. And with this in mind, I'm also excited to see just how great his playmaking can be this season, because we've seen him dice up a Clippers team with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George as a 20-year-old in the playoffs, playing with guys like Trey Burke, Boban Marjanovic, and Tim Hardaway Jr. So now at 25 years old, he's not playing with those guys anymore, with all due respect. Next to him, he will have Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson, two of the greatest shooters in NBA history. And when he's not driving and dishing to lethal three-point shooters, then he has two elite lob threats as well in Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, who can bring down lobs from the ceiling if they need to. And that's without mentioning guys like PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes. Offensively, this is by far the most talent Luka Doncic has ever played with. And I don't truly know how good Klay Thompson will be this season, but I know one thing is for certain. He's gone from probably a bit overrated to being completely underrated, because people are treating him like he shouldn't even be on an NBA court anymore, despite making the second most three-pointers in the league the last 2 years, shooting 40% in the process. And that's exactly what Dallas need, particularly after what we saw in the finals against Boston, where everyone highlighted the defensive issues, but teams don't normally win against elite teams when they shoot 31% from three, which is what Dallas shot against Boston. Bringing in one of the best shooters in the league to play alongside two of the best shooters and playmakers in the league makes it hard to imagine Dallas could have a series like that from three again. The thing is, Luka was by no means bad in the finals against Boston. He just shot terribly from three, which you might say means he had a bad series, but when Tatum and Brown shot 26 and 23% from three, and Kyrie shot 27% from three, you can't just single out Luka and say he was awful because his shot wasn't falling, when in reality, he was incredibly efficient from two-point range. But regardless of that, like I said, having that level of heartbreak feels like the kind of motivation that could take him to just a different level, maybe even resulting in him being in the best shape of his career. Now, I don't want to be that guy, but it's clear Luka was carrying some extra weight during the playoffs. I'm not going to be like Stephen A. Smith and say he was fat or he was 300 pounds, but just look at him in this clip from earlier in the season against the OKC Thunder. Obviously, having an injury or multiple injuries can explain why he lost a step, but you can clearly see him at least 10 pounds lighter in that clip versus what we saw during the playoffs. And I think that's the best shape we've seen from Luka in his career, which led to some of the most ridiculous performances, like the game against Phoenix or that comeback against OKC. Give us that version of Luka for an entire season and playoff run, and the league will be in even more trouble than it was last year. Now, if you want to hear my full thoughts on why Klay Thompson makes sense for the Dallas Mavericks, click here. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. A like would be cool, but either way, have a very great day.